Now, I know you're trying to solve a big problem in companies. You're trying to get them to be a bit more inclusive, which I think is just admirable. And I think it's great because a lot of companies, especially people when some companies just don't even know where to start. And so when you mean with your technology and your consultancy, when you go really deep, like you're trying to really connect to these people, I'm guessing, yeah, which is great. So how do you balance that consultancy with technology?
Yeah, so for us, the two work separately, but can also go hand in hand. And we've seen that work differently with different clients. And it really depends on what's going on for that organization. So we will normally tend to go in and kind of do a bit of diagnostic work up front, just to understand where that company is at right now, listen to people and find out what's keeping them awake at night or where some of the problems are. Now, for some people, it could just be actually the tech is exactly what they need. So they don't need any additional support. They just need the right technology platform or infrastructure to help them identify and select talent more effectively, because they've got that culture of psychological safety. There are other organizations we've come across that don't have that, where they also need some additional support and help to create that culture, or to understand what's causing some of the, or causing the lack of psychological safety or causing fear in the organization. So our consultancy team will normally go in, do like an audit or review of some of their processes or practices to understand where some of those pain points are, and then help with an action plan to give that company the tools to then say, right, here are things you can fix yourself, or here's where you're going to need some external support in terms of education or consultancy advice to be able to fix some of these particular challenges or problems that might be unique to that business. The tech is different in that it's the enabler on a permanent basis. So the consultancy piece is really just a fix in the short term. You diagnose, you fix, we come out. We're not there to be part of that business or to be dependent to that business. Whereas the technology is a way of constantly maintaining equity in those processes that businesses can use to self-serve.
Awesome. So what would you say are the benefits for those businesses who try to incorporate like inclusivity into their talent management right from the beginning? What would you say are the benefits? Like, let's hear it.
So again, really good research on this. So there's papers from people like McKinsey, Towers Watson, Mercer that are well-documented case studies that show huge improvements in productivity, performance, and profit for organizations that get this right, where you get that sweet spot of diversity of thought and that inclusive psychological safety in an organization. They are one stat was that the average EBITDA, so the profit ratio of an organization, particularly for FTSE or PLC listed businesses, was on average 56% higher than those that don't have those practices in place. So I'm yet to come across a business that if you said to them, you can have over half of your growth again in a year, would you be up for that by making some changes? I'm yet to come across one that said no.
Amazing. Well, I think every company should have inclusive talent management. So that's just me. Awesome. So what would be the most common issues you maybe run in when you're first working with like new clients? Like what would be like any challenges you had in the beginning?
I'd say there's two kind of key challenges. The one tends to be when dealing with talent professionals and we're talking to them about the technology, some people tend to be quite wedded to the old way of doing things because it's been for them, it's a method that they've used their entire professional lives, and therefore the 9-box grid is the holy grail that they stick to because it's tried, tested, and in their mind it works. When you then point out to them the results it generates and you take the time to explain that to them, you can see the light bulbs going in, like, oh, actually I understand, I've hardwired a bias into the organization that needs fixing. But it does take a couple of conversations usually for people, or at least our conversation, should I say, for people to really get the message around that and to see the benefits. I would say on the broader side around diversity and inclusion, sometimes people, we come across a lot of leaders that will do I recognize that it's not inclusive, but I'm not part of the problem. I get it. And often we do have to do a bit of work getting people to see that we're all part of the problem. And actually we all need to, be educated, look at things differently in order to make sure and hold ourselves to account to make sure that we don't unintentionally become exclusive to anybody, because we're all human and we're fallible. None of us are perfect, and we're all constantly learning. So that tends to be the other challenge, I would say.
Amazing. I mean, I would say a lot of companies would need to have that desire to learn, because at the end of the day, it's like, they can't expect technology or tools out there just to solve all their problems. Like, it can definitely assist and help in areas, but it kind of has to come from within as well, because, you know, you've got to have that will to kind of like want to make that change by yourself, and with assistance from tools and technology, or bringing people in, or having that leadership training, or whatever it is. It's that, like, this deep down in the core that's going to bring you that success, and it's going to make that journey a lot easier if you have that will to like learn about things and educate yourself, as you mentioned. So that's great.
Yeah, definitely. I would say so. And yeah, having it's amazing if people are open to that. And we are fortunate enough to work with some great people who are really open to learn and try things differently and are seeing great results on the back of it. Equally, you will still get success by just putting the right systems and processes in place in the organization, because again, it's the whole, people will go with the path of least resistance. If it's easy, they'll do it regardless of whether it's right or wrong. They'll work with the system that you give them.
Yeah, absolutely. So what advice and tips would you give someone, or companies rather, like, to be, I know you mentioned a couple of these before, but like, is there any sort of ideas or approaches that you would help them, guide them on their journey to become more inclusive in their company? Like, you know, what some starting points for perhaps?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I would say that the best results we ever see with any of the organizations we work with are the ones that make the process or the systemic changes. I use these words a lot, but it's just because it's true, and the data shows us that. So if you have a structured interview process that is consistent, that is one of the best ways of creating equity in the recruitment process to bring talent into the business. And there are some wonderful software platforms out there that will help you with structured interview questions, e.g. Equitas. And similarly, I would say, once you've then got people into the organization, it's how do you make life easier for them, create transparency and create equity around those processes. So again, it just becomes easy for managers and leaders to make the right decisions based on data, because they won't intentionally exclude people from that process. It's just they need to see that view of the short list of the best people for roles or opportunities or projects. And so if you can do that through a system or a platform, then that will make it a lot easier and a lot faster for you than trying to just educate the entire workforce, which can be quite expensive and timely.
I can imagine. So that's great. So now, final question is that, so I kind of want to end it on this, because I feel like I know inclusive talent management is important to you, and I kind of want to grasp on the understanding of why exactly is this so important for any organization, small, medium, large size, whichever. Like, why is this important?
So the reality is we are in an incredibly volatile, uncertain and complex and ambiguous world at the moment. We are seeing it everywhere, you know, our political system, our economic systems globally, and the world of work. Everything's changed in the last few years, and businesses are really having to be innovative and thoughtful in the way that they do business. The consumer has changed drastically. What people care about now from organizations and society is different. The generation that's coming in through the workforce now are so much more hardwired into ethics and climate and sustainability than older generations, and that's just fact. And so we have to adapt and find ways of, as organizations, supporting individuals, you know, being good in society and creating that sustainable change. And without the right levels of inclusion and in talent management in the business, it cannot be achieved, because you end up with homogenous or group thinking taking place. And we need that diversity of thought and that psychological safety to get true innovation to tackle these problems. A bit like the Volkswagen example I used earlier. That's an example where it just doesn't work. You flip that round and you look at Rihanna's Fenty business. Rihanna ingeniously came up with the concept of making sure that makeup was representative and accessible to people of different skin tones, something that the major players in the market had overlooked for years. So by having that diversity of thought in her team, she's created a £1 billion business in under 10 years, something that most people would really struggle to do. But you can only do that and get that level of growth and innovation if you've got diversity of thought in your organization. And the root cause of that is inclusive talent management.
There you go. Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Martin. Like, I feel so like empowered and like, do you know what, for you starting a company in 2020 global pandemic, you know, it's something that companies can really appreciate going forward and helping them to build a more inclusive talent management. I think that is incredible and admirable. So well done to you.
Thank you, Rachel. That means a lot. I couldn't do it without my wonderful team, so I am incredibly grateful to them.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Martin, for taking your time to like give us some great insights. I'm sure a lot of companies will, you know, benefit from this. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Rachel. It's been a pleasure.